Many people think launching a rocket is only hard because of the engineering part, but the truth is, it's way more difficult and complex than that. This is especially true if you're based in a country as bureaucratic as the United States, where the regulations and paperwork can be more time-consuming than the actual rocket development itself. Now, as we are approaching the third launch of the Starship rocket, all eyes are on the Federal Aviation Administration for this very matter. Because, as I mentioned, even if the rocket is ready to lift off, it cannot do so unless the launch license is granted by certain government bodies. And recently, the FAA has made an important statement regarding this upcoming launch, and we are here to cover that in today's video. Before we delve deeper, please make sure to subscribe to our channel for future updates about the Starship and SpaceX's other groundbreaking projects. After an extensive investigation into SpaceX's second Starship flight, the Federal Aviation Administration has finally concluded its examination, which is very important for SpaceX as it looks forward to obtaining a license for future launches. The investigation began following the deliberate destruction of the Starship prototype on November 18th. On this day, the rocket started facing some issues shortly after liftoff. Initially, the Super Heavy booster worked as planned, propelling the Starship on its path into orbit. This early success was a key test of the booster's ability to generate the enormous force needed for the mission. However, trouble started after the Starship separated from its booster. Engines that were supposed to keep the Starship ascending began to shut down without warning. This was unexpected and indicated serious trouble with the spacecraft's engines, critical for its continued climb into orbit. The situation got worse when one of the engines stopped working altogether. This wasn't a minor issue. It was a major problem that affected the spacecraft's ability to stay on course and reach orbit. With the failure of this engine, the Starship could no longer maintain its planned path or altitude. Given these escalating problems and the potential danger they posed, the decision was made to destroy the Starship prototype to ensure public safety. This controlled destruction of the spacecraft was carried out using the flight termination system. You might think, given that the flight termination system is specifically designed for such situation, why would the FAA have any concerns? After all, the rocket didn't fail and fall onto residential areas, causing loss of life or significant property damage. However, despite the controlled destruction, the remains of the spacecraft don't just disappear. The debris, including various components and potentially hazardous materials, still falls back to Earth. The concern isn't just about preventing a catastrophic crash, but also about where these pieces land and the potential harm they could cause. We can recall the aftermath of the first Starship launch, which encountered a problem somewhat more severe than the second one. Debris from that launch, such as concrete and metal pieces, fell into residential areas. This wasn't minor. Concrete chunks and metal fragments landed in people's yards, some even damaging homes and cars. This is why the FAA is so involved in regulating these launches. The review led to the identification of 17 specific corrective actions that SpaceX is now implementing. The investigation also revealed several key issues that contributed to the mission's explosive end. Notably, the Super Heavy booster's 33 engines initially performed as expected, but problems arose shortly after the upper part of Starship separated from the booster. A series of engine shutdowns led to a failure, resulting in the booster breaking apart. Further complications were encountered with Starship itself, as a leak in the rear of the spacecraft led to a combustion event and subsequent fires, disrupting the connection between the spacecraft's flight computers and ultimately shutting down Starship's 6 engines. In response to these challenges, SpaceX has not only identified corrective actions, but has also initiated changes to the upcoming Starship vehicles to prevent similar issues. The company is focusing on upgrades to both the booster and the Starship prototypes. For the booster, SpaceX has focused on enhancing the engine redundancy system. This involves improving the software that manages engine performance and shutdown procedures, ensuring that the booster can continue its flight even if one or several engines fail. The aim is to prevent a repeat of the unexpected engine shutdowns that contributed to the decision to terminate the flight. On the Starship spacecraft, upgrades include reinforcing the structural integrity of critical components to withstand the extreme heat of launch and re-entry. SpaceX has also been working on refining the thermal protection system, which is crucial for protecting the spacecraft from the extreme temperatures encountered during re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. Another significant upgrade is the improvement of the flight termination system. While the system worked as intended during the last test, SpaceX is making adjustments to ensure it can be activated more reliably under a broader range of scenarios. For those who closely follow SpaceX's journey, it's notable how the Federal Aviation Administration initially required SpaceX to implement 63 corrective actions after the first flight of Starship. Now, moving forward from the second flight, the FAA has ordered only 17 corrective actions. This significant reduction in required actions shows the progress and improvements SpaceX has made. Musk is aiming for a mid-March launch for its Starship spacecraft, following the Federal Aviation Administration's recent review that resulted in 17 corrective actions SpaceX must address. It's uncertain whether SpaceX can meet these requirements within the 2-week timeframe. Even if SpaceX manages to address all the FAA's concerns, the FAA will need to review the changes, and there's always the possibility they may identify additional requirements before granting the launch license. This situation brings to mind the frustrating delays caused by the licensing process for both the first and second Starship launches. Fans and followers of SpaceX have experienced moments when the anticipation for the FAA's approval was bigger than the excitement for the actual launch dates. Musk himself has not shied away from expressing his frustrations with the regulatory body, highlighting the bureaucratic hurdles in the path of space innovation. For example, Musk has publicly criticized the FAA for its slow and overly cautious approach, especially after the delays faced before the first test flight. While the Federal Aviation Administration's oversight is crucial for ensuring public safety during rocket tests, some experts argue that the strict regulations may be hindering the United States' competitiveness in the global space race. Meanwhile, countries like China, which operate under less strict regulatory frameworks, are advancing rapidly and aggressively in space exploration and technology development. Concerns are growing over China's ambitions in space, particularly its aim to become the leading space power, potentially surpassing the United States within the next few decades. Even though there are criticisms about China copying technology, its targeted investments in space exploration and technological development are noteworthy. This includes the development of their Long March rocket series, which they hope will even surpass SpaceX's Starship in terms of capabilities and efficiency. China's strategic push in space exploration, including ambitious projects like the Long March rocket, underscores the competitive nature of the global space race. And that's all for today's update. If you enjoyed watching and found it useful, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.